We have a minute more. Let's get started. As you know, I am Sesh Murthy. I'm the Dean of the Computer Science and Software Engineering Department at Western Governors University. Today, I'll introduce Mike Peterson, the Associate Dean, and our guest, Professor Ram D. Sriram, who is joining us from the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. So let me introduce Ram briefly, and then we will discuss the value of software engineering and computer science education in today's world. So Ram is the chief of the Software and Systems Division, Information Technology Laboratory at the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. Before joining the Software and Systems Division, Ram was the leader of the Design and Process Group in the Manufacturing Systems Integration Division, where we conducted research on standards for interoperability of computer-aided design systems. Prior to joining NIST, he was on the engineering faculty from 1986 to 1994 at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he was instrumental in setting up the Intelligent Engineering Systems Laboratory there. Ram has co-authored over 300 publications, including several books and videos. He was a founding editor of the International Journal for AI and Engineering. He has received several awards, including the NSF Presidential Young Investigator Award in 1989, the ASME Design Automation Award in 2011, the ASME CIE Distinguished Service Award in 2014, the Washington Academy of Sciences Distinguished Career of Engineering Sciences Award in 2015, and many more. I'll mention a few more. The IIT Madras Distinguished Alumni Award in 2021. Ram is a fellow of the AAIA, AIBME, ASME, AAAS, IEEE, INCOSE, SMA, and the Washington Academy of Sciences, a distinguished member of the ACM and a senior member of AAAI. He's an honorary member of the IISc, and this is an honor he shares with people like Von Braun, the rocket pioneer, and Lee Iacocca, the Chrysler chairman. Sriram has a BTech from IIT Madras, an MS and a PhD from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So Ram, welcome to the Dean's Fireside Chat.
Oh, thank you very much, Shesh.
Yeah. So let me kick this off with a question to you. And so Ram, you have a storied background in computer science and software engineering. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey into the field?
Yeah, so I had a long journey starting from 1975 into the field. So what I'm going to do is to rather talk about it, I'm going to show you a few slides around here, which will tell you my journey starting from being from a civil engineer all the way to a computer scientist. Can you all see my slides here? I have to share it, I guess. And let me just share it.
Sharing would be better.
Let me share the slides, if you don't mind. Application. Well, can you
I can see it now? Yeah, you want to put that in screenshot mode. I mean, in
can you see that now?
Yeah, very well. My journey in computation.
Yeah, I can't really see this very well, but I can see myself. But anyway, you can see me.
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my journey with respect to this slide of the evolution of the internet. As you can see, what has happened from 1969 until now. So really around 75 is to 1980, I did my bachelor's from IIT Madras. And as Shesh mentioned that they gave me the Distinguished Alumnus Award last year, which I'm very proud of as such, because IIT Madras is the number one engineering institution in India. I used to work on this area called offshore structures. And at that time, again, it's the reason why I'm talking about this is everything I did involves computation. This is also computation. But it's a different kind of computation. It involves analysis of this offshore structure in about 1,000 feet deep structure in a random wave field. So there's a lot of math involved in there, and there's a lot of computation trying to figure out the Fourier transforms and so on. So that's where I started my life with. Then I went to Carnegie Mellon and got my master's and PhD there. And in my master's, what I did was I kind of worked on these fast-moving trains on rail tracks. And at the time, people thought that the rail track will fail first, but we showed it's not the rail track, but it rather then the soil will fail before the rail track, and when at a particular speed, which is the Rayleigh velocity at the time. But then there's also damping in the soil and so on. So, but again, this involves computation because it involves developing a hybrid finite element method and solving this finite element and find a solution on a digital computer. And then a couple of years later, again, I was very fortunate to meet two luminaries in the field, Professor Raj Reddy, who is again a Turing Award winner, and Steve Fenves, a member of the Academy. Steve Fenves was the one who wrote the first analysis program on a digital computer in 1960. And Raj is a pioneer in speech understanding. Like for any speech system that you see now can be traced back to Raj Reddy's lab. So influenced by both these people, I did my PhD, which again, I published as a book in 1987, which is knowledge-based approaches for structural design. And it's application of artificial intelligence techniques for engineering design. So I moved away from an analytical computation to symbolic computation around here. And at the same time, I founded this journal called Artificial Intelligence in Engineering Journal in 1986 while I was just a graduate student. But at the time, I was going to MIT. So from 86 to 94, I taught in MIT Department of Civil Engineering. But then I taught courses in artificial intelligence, software development, and object-oriented systems. And the idea here is that in MIT has a lot of very bright students. However, they don't work together to develop any piece of software. So the idea behind here is to how do you teach these engineers to develop large pieces of software in a collaborative manner. So this is cooperative software development. And the interesting thing is that this also actually led to my research there, which involves this thing called distributed and integrated computer-aided engineering environment. Now, this was in the 1986 to 1994. So at that time, we envisioned that the internet is going to take over the world. So at the same time, at that time that people just used to use internet for email and things like that. But we said internet is more than that. So along with my colleague Bob Loescher and a bunch of really bright graduate students, we developed this system called DICE, which essentially is a collaborative framework using internet as the medium. It's like a Facebook-like systems for engineers, except that Facebook made a lot of money because the audience was a different audience, and this was an engineering audience. But the interesting part here is that this is a big exercise in software development, because the underlying database was a object-oriented database, and we had to build layers and layers of things over it. And we also invented what is known as a active blackboard system, because at CMU, Raj Reddy pioneered the blackboard systems, and this is an active blackboard system. So the blackboard system itself is intelligent, and we invented that particular thing, and we had to do that. It involves millions and millions of lines of code. Actually, not millions, maybe 1 million lines of code as such. Okay. But then the thing is that all this were built by graduate students and I'll come back later on when what the lessons learned in terms of software engineering. So I don't want to go into too much details, but kind of tell you that we developed this at that time. Okay. And then this is all published in a book called Distributed and Integrated Collaborative Engineering Design. At the same time, I used to also teach a course on, apart from the course on software development, I also used to teach a course on AI for engineering. And that and at that time, really, we talked about symbolic computing of AI, and we also talked about neural networks, and we talked about how neural networks and the symbolic computing can come together. And that's what we see right now, anyway, in terms of the trends, and I'll come to that later on.
Yeah, we are going to ask you, I'm going to ask you about what advice you have for our students. And so this work on cooperative software, everything else I will.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to the advice part of it later on. In terms of anyway, since you're asking the question right now, see, what happens is that we have students working together in terms of collaboratively trying to develop these large pieces of software. Like they develop a non-manifold geometric modeler, okay, which there's no non-manifold geometric modeler at the time. This is the first time any non-manifold geometric modeler was developed in a digital computer. And a non-manifold geometric modeler, what is it? And some of you are in the CAD world, you'll see all this, and those of you who've seen computer graphics and so on, you see these objects there, which are virtual objects in the computer. But then in a non-manifold way, what happens is that, and most of them are manifold, like if you take a point, every point around that is homogeneous. But then if you want to mix this along with heterogeneous material and so on, you have a problem. And these people did it. How did they do it? A bunch of 4 or 5 graduate students. It was a part of this collaborative design course. Yeah. And what I did was that over the years, every year I used to assign them one of these parts of this DICE project. Like 1 year, they had to develop this non-manifold geometric modeler. They developed that together. They had to develop it in a modular manner. They had to develop the interfaces. The specifications had to be written. And a lot of time has to be spent on writing the specifications. Absolutely. Because if you don't get the specifications right, everything else is wrong. Okay. Right. So that's a fundamental thing around here, getting the specifications. And the important thing right now, again, I'll come back to that later on, is you have to do a formal way of writing the specifications. You write it in English and map it into formal specifications, and then you map it into your design. Okay. So that's very important. Then the other important part around here is designing the interfaces between various modules have to be clearly defined. Yeah. And that have to be very, very clear too. Yeah. The third part of it is the modular design of the systems. Of course, that modular design comes second, and then the interfaces comes after that. And then there's a lot of coding going on around here. And then if you can borrow from some places, you can do it. And also things have evolved right now, as you can see, in terms of software engineering itself. And again, this is only my journey, and we'll go into those details.
We'll get into that. We'll get into this. So if, can I ask you a follow-on question?
Yeah.
I mean, about what are the, you're the chief of the software and systems division at NIST, right? National Institutes of Standards and Technology. Can you tell us a little bit more in about a couple of minutes about what your work involves?
So what I'm going to do is,
if you're not, you're sharing your screen still. If you're not,
I'm going to end this share, because what has happened is over the years, then I went into after MIT, I went to NIST, and then I developed a program there in design. From there, I joined the Software and Systems Division in 2010, and as you can see that. I was also involved with Windsurf, and we came up with this idea of smartphones, smart devices, social networks, and smart healthcare about 2013 timeframe. And since that gives you a segue into this, Shesh, in 2013, you can see that we developed this strategic plan for my division. And then let me tell you a little bit more about, I'm going to stop sharing around here.
Yeah.
Have I stopped sharing?
No, you're still sharing. Now you're stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll stop sharing this. And then what I will do is that I will open up a different application. I will share that one.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. Is it anything coming?
No, not yet.
Okay. This is all. Can you see this?
Yeah. Systems, the overview. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I go into the presentation mode. So this is I'm going to talk a little bit about what my division does around here, as you asked. Yeah. And first thing we ask, the main purpose of my division is to inspire trust and cultivate confidence in software systems and measurements.
Yeah.
That is why we are in existence. So one of the things that, again, for your students, we always, especially when they go into the real world and they are put in charge of big projects, you really have, the first question you have to ask is why? Why am I doing this? For me, is to develop trustworthy software is our main thing. And I am at NIST, so we work on measurements. So we want to develop that, inspire trust and cultivate confidence in software systems and measurements. So that's a primary goal around here. Why? So there are two parts of my division, the software part and the systems part. So in terms of the software part, I'm going to tell this through some stories. There was a murder case in Ireland. It was called Almost the Perfect Murder, where a lady named Elaine O'Hara got killed and they found her. But then there was an architect who actually killed her. The only evidence that they could find was on the mobile phone. So there was a court case, and in the court case, what happened is that the defense attorney for that particular culprit, or a person who was supposed to be convicted, whatever it is, he was the defendant, and he said, "How are you sure that what you took from this particular phone is trustworthy or not?"
Right.
So the prosecutor said, "Well, we got this particular software was tested at NIST, and that's the end of it." Okay, and the defense said arrested, and the guy was convicted. So we do this is the work of our computer forensics tool testing, and similarly, the Supreme Court of United States, it cites our mobile forensic guide in ruling on cell phone searches. So this is also computer forensic tool testing. And in the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, some of you may be familiar with that. When it went down, we got a call, I guess, from the FBI or someone wanted to know whether this old piece of software, we had it or not. We have something called the National Software Reference Library, where we have all the pieces of all the software that is ever developed in this particular library. Okay, so he said, yeah, here it is. And then about 3 or 4 months later, we saw in the news item, they don't tell us exactly what they did with it, but you saw the news item that the pilot was using the simulator software. Okay, that's the one they wanted to know. And then in terms of the software, you have this problem of trust. There's a performance of scalable systems. And I don't want to go into too much details of that, but the idea here is that you have problems in terms of this. If you drive Tesla is actually reading the signs. It's a stop sign or something like that. But then if you put a post-it note out there, it thinks it's a speed limit sign. So what you can do is you can put Trojans in the software. So the idea then is, how do you detect these things? So we work in that area in terms of helping people to evaluate these pieces of software which check for Trojans. You must have heard about this thing. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Many of the students who write these pieces of software, when you ask them how come there's a bug in your software, they'll say, no, it's a feature. Well, that's wrong. So we have a whole framework which works in this thing in terms of how do you formalize these bugs, how do you avoid these bugs, and so on. So the software assurance. And the last part of it is that NIST traditionally works in physical measurements, like the kilogram, meter, everything can be traced to us. Now the question is that, because we are also part of Constitution, if you go to the Constitution, I guess Article 1, Section 8, we are part of it. So this particular thing is, is there a similar thing for measurement of software? So that's what the software performance is all about. So we call it the software identification and quality. So then there are all kinds of other things in software. You like, for example, the previous slide, this one shows there's a book by Nicholas Wirth who said algorithms plus data structures equals program. So we have a different paradigm. Our paradigm is algorithms and data structures and scheduling, memory management, and data management is HPCC programs. Now, this is because you can see all the GPUs, CPUs, and so on. So it's parallel computing. So we work on how do you increase the performance of the systems. Then there's a whole lot of other things. We also develop software for, I don't want to go into details. I think Shays, in terms of the time, we got to be careful around here. So just some of the projects here. And this one is measurements things where we actually worked on a project where you can detect, you can help better stem cell therapy for age-related macular degeneration. It's a computational metrology part of it. So in other words, we develop software to help our measurements people, our metrology people, in this case, the biological people. Then there's a whole lot of other things which I don't want to go into details around here, but there's a software part of it. Then in terms of the systems part of it, if you look at software, now software is everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So there are so many systems which kind of have software in that. And one of the major problems, like in terms of the healthcare, you have electronic health records, and you have information coming from radiologists, information coming from lab information systems. All of them have to be integrated. So there's this whole problem of interoperability of systems, and we work on that. So similarly, cloud computing is another area. Internet of everything is a thing that is very common right now, and you can see it everywhere. It's also becoming ubiquitous. Like in fact, you're wearing an Apple Watch, which is communicating with something with your mobile phone, and so on and so forth. So if you look at the Internet of devices, there are billions and billions of devices which are being connected. So we're looking at formalisms of that. Okay, then voting is another area that we have been working on, developing standards for this part of it. So anyway, I don't know.
That's fantastic. So
yeah,
I mean, you touched on both.
What my division is working on. So I'm going to stop at this stage.
Yeah, thanks for taking us for what your work involves and some of the software engineering projects that you're working on. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I want to ask you two questions, right? You mentioned that building software cooperatively, building trustworthy software, interoperability, all these things. We got as software engineers, we are responsible for this and a lot more. So I'm going to ask you, what advice do you have for our current and prospective computer and software engineering students, based upon all of the work that you have done in your career?
So I think one of the most important thing is computational thinking. That's the single most important thing. Now, what is computational?
Can you tell us more about that?
If you have not heard about it, there's a paper by Janet Wing. If you basically Google and find out who Janet Wing is, and she put it this way: computational thinking is the thought process involved in formulating a problem and expressing its solution in such a way that a computer, human or machine, can effectively carry out. Okay, that's what computational thinking. So what does it involve? It involves dealing with abstractions. So again, if you take any of the complex problems that you're going to face in terms of software, you have abstractions out there. You got to work at the right level of abstraction. Okay, so when you take the specifications and map them into particular design, the first thing you don't directly write code, but you write these block diagrams, and those are abstractions. And then when you're doing this thing, you can also use the paradigm divide and conquer. So that's decomposition. So you have abstractions, you have decomposition. Then you got to need to represent these things in the appropriate manner. Representation plays a big role. What kind of data structures are you using? Whether they're object-oriented data structures and so on. So those are the representational things that you need to take into account. And then you have the algorithms. Like if you are developing, as I said, finite element analysis package, then you have the things algorithms which are developed in that area. Similarly, if you are doing protein-protein interaction, then you have algorithms in that area. So you have representation. How do you represent these proteins geometrically? You have algorithms, molecular dynamic simulations, and things like that. You act on these representations. So that's the basic fundamental thing in terms of software development, computational thinking.
Yeah, I love what you said, because when in today's world where the AI can help you with a lot of the grunt work of putting things together, the top task that the software engineer faces is to think, like you said, in a computational way, right? And so you mentioned abstractions, going from specs to design, and then what the data structures are and the algorithms are, and these are core things that we teach in our software engineering and computer science degrees. And when we get to the question and answer portion, maybe Mike can ask you a question about that, and we can go forward on that. But yeah, so that's a great piece of advice. So what do you see as some of the grand challenges for software engineering?
Yeah, that's a good question because people have been toying around with it for quite some time. Because if you look at every facet of every industry is being transformed by software. That's a fundamental
Absolutely.
thing. Software is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that software, it kind of enables this innovation, but it is the Achilles heel too. Why? Because there are vulnerabilities in the software. People
Yeah.
have,
Right.
and there's a lot dangerous. Imagine, what could happen when ransomware is a good thing on that, and that's because of software which has vulnerabilities in the thing itself. So you have to make sure that these you have to design in security rather than thinking the security after the fact. So security is very, very important, and software errors are costing our economy more than $100 billion a year in terms of waste. More than that, this is just a conservative estimate as such. And for example, there was a recent Russian hack on software supply chains. Supply chains become very important because now software is not really a single piece. It's becoming so complex that you can also take these modules. Remember the modular decomposition from various places, and you're trying to put that into your software. As a result of that, you can hack any of this particular thing along the supply chain, and you get into trouble. And there was a Russian hack on software supply chains that had an effect on 30,000 public and private organizations.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the kinds of things that you have, and then to summarize, the complexity of the software is increasing, as you know. So you have to build in design and security. And since you're talking about all these modules, interoperability becomes a big thing. The other thing, in terms of, you got to measure software quality. What do you mean by software? What are the measurement attributes of this whole thing? You need to do it. And specifications have to be written unambiguously, and they have to be traced. So that's, let me show you one particular slide here. This one, which is a recent, the reason why I'm sharing this is this particular thing. Let me see if I can, I'm not sure that, oh yeah, I'm going to share this. Can you see this?
Yeah, go to screen share mode.
Okay, now I got to go to this screen share mode. Okay, this is a particular thing. So this was the roadmap which was created. So there are several things that are going to happen. One is artificial intelligence is going to play a major role in software development. Okay,
so it is right now,
especially like, for example, ChatGPT and things like that is producing code. Now, if you, as students, you'll be writing codes and things like that. But then once you go out into the real world, what is going to happen is that you are going to get things from outside in terms of outsourcing things. Okay. And also you want to think in terms of abstraction. So something else is going to provide the code. You'll say, listen, I want a particular thing which can do sort. Now there's a code which there's some, you don't write the code for sorting. There's already a code for sorting, and that brings in. Similarly, you say, I want to design something which can do this efficient voting. So something is automatically doing that kind of a thing. So AI is going to play a major role. Second thing is that this software is going to evolve over the life cycle. It won't be like right now, Microsoft, for those of you who have gone through this Windows system over the last 30 years or so, you can see you have some Windows to 10, 11, 12, I don't know how many Windows will come. So this software is becoming complex and it's evolving. And when software is becoming complex and evolving, you got to make sure that assurance is carefully managed as such. So that means that these systems, as you can see there, that you have to have mechanisms for software assurance. And also, like, for example, automatic system update and those kinds of things are done, but vulnerabilities have to be taken care of. At the same time, you have to make sure that this software is robust and assurance metrics are in place. The third thing that is going to happen is that this software is going to be constructed, as we said, in a modular manner, and that is through composition of various other pieces of software. So we'll have techniques like smart composition technologies, and so on and so forth. And so that is another area which you will see in terms. Then the other part of it is this AI systems. How do you engineer them? So that's why one is the development paradigms, other is architectural paradigms. And
Yeah.
this is a report based of from Software Engineering Institute at CMU. It's called Architecting the Future, and sorry, of software engineering, and you can download it from the web. So you can see there, engineering the AI-enabled software system poses its own problems. And then you're also seeing these large-scale societal systems, like computer systems are not just computer systems, they're human computer systems. There are cyber physical social systems. They're smart network systems and societies where human beings and computers are in a symbiosis. So you have different kinds of architectures that you're going to see. Finally, you're going to see quantum computing in the future. You have not seen that very much, but you'll see quantum computer. And then once quantum computing comes in, you have a whole different ballgame in software engineering, very different than what you're facing right now. So I think this is the book that you should be. It's called Architecting the Future of Software Engineering, and Forrest Schull and Anita, they have I think produced this book. So you can get it from the web. So that's
it's a great
did
book.
answer the question on that?
Yeah, that's a great answer. I mean, you brought up multiple things, right? I mean, when we were asking you about the grand challenges, you were one of the things you stressed was how to write secure software. With that's difficult, and you brought up complexity, interoperability, how to measure what software is doing, and and how to and you brought up the point that software will evolve. So net, if I summarize, what you're saying about the grand challenges in software engineering, I wanted to get your point of view. I think that AI is going to get smarter, and it's going to help you to build larger and larger pieces, but building the entire system and making it secure, highly available, and so on and so forth, right? Is going to be something that the software engineer has to play a role in as we go forward. I don't see that changing in the near term.
Yeah. So you are actually witnessing something else too. Now that's the thing where you can see the Europeans and other people are getting scared of AI. Okay, they're saying the AI is going to, how are you going to manage AI? So there is something called a risk management. NIST is working on AI risk management framework. So it's very, very important. Of course, any software you can say that you have to have risk management. But AI, the problem there is that the data can be manipulated, the algorithms can be manipulated, the output can be manipulated. So that's a major problem around here. How can you manage the risk when all these things are happening, and how can you make sure that your AI is trustworthy, and how can we make sure this is responsible? So trustworthy AI and responsible AI are the things that you're going to see in the future. Okay.
Fantastic. I mean, that's if that's not a grand challenge for software engineering to put together, I don't know what is. To build, build AI risk management, make sure that the AI is trustworthy and responsible.
Yeah.
If that's not a grand challenge, I don't know what is. Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple more questions, and then we can go to the question and answers from the audience. So one is, the field is advancing really rapidly. You brought up that when we went to grad school, we were writing sorting algorithms, and the question was how to write it better, so on and so forth. That you can get canned algorithms for doing most of the stuff that you want to do, but that's just one part of it, right? With AI coming in, with Bard, with ChatGPT, I mean, the things are moving pretty quickly. How can our software engineers from WGU, right, who we're providing a great background in software engineering and how to use the tools, how can they stay ahead of the curve in a rapidly changing field? What do you think?
That's a very good question, because they have to, many of the capabilities I discussed before, they have to acquire those things. They have to acquire how to think abstract terms, how to develop how to do the decomposition, how to develop the interfaces between these various modules. Because as we talked about in AI, like for example, if I want to write a system for diagnosing IBD, IBD is a very complex system, irritable bowel IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So if you want to do that, then in the future, you just go to the system and say, I want to write a computer program, do this thing which can diagnose IBS, and here are my constraints on that thing. And the system is going to generate it using some AI technique, okay? So then as a software engineer, now you have to have the capabilities to see how I can test this thing.
Yeah, okay.
The testing mechanisms that I have to go. And I have to understand how to write high quality, secure software. That's the key thing. Understanding how to write high quality, secure software. And you have to learn either by experience or through fundamental courses. And then you have to have constant continuing education on advances in new programming paradigms. Like quantum computing is going to come in. So you have to be constantly educating yourself. And again, last but not the least, you have to understand it, computational thinking.
Fantastic answer, right? I mean, so you're just saying you need you focus on computational thinking as a start. I mean, then constant education to help you go forward there. Then the how to write high quality software and secure software and how to test it. These are things you should focus on go forward. It's a really good set of things that our WGU software engineers and others should focus on as they go forward. So finally, as the Chief of Systems and Software at National Institute of Standards and Technology, do you have any advice for our students after they graduate? What advice do you have for them?
Let me share a screen here, if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
It's be kind of visual, and you can have copies of this if you like. Okay, so I'm gonna do a share here. Screen. Then I go to window.
While Ram is doing this, guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the queue so that we can take a look at them. Right?
Yeah, I call it advice or bits of wisdom in whatever way you want it.
Yeah.
So there are several things around here that I always give this advice to graduating students, and you can see all these noble people out there. Like the first one is, no matter what you do, be the best in your field. In your if you are a stonemason, then you should be the best stonemason in the world. Okay, you can do anything you want, but you have to be the best in the world. And this is due to my uncle, who told me when I first joined my undergraduate class, this is what he told me. And the second one is that you have to understand that in a life journey, you'll encounter several obstacles. Okay? Do not worry about the obstacles you face in your professional career and personal life. Okay. Yeah. The other thing that will happen is that many times people will not believe in your ideas. Like in MIT, when we developed this thing called that, when we told people that the internet is going to take all over the world, and we developed this collaborative system, our collaborative engineering system based on the internet paradigm, no one believed us. But we said, no, this is what is going to happen when we stuck to it, when we went all the way through it. And I think that, we were successful eventually. And people now recognize the fact that we are the pioneers in the field. It will pay off in the long run. Don't worry if people say that you're doing something wrong. If you believe in it, work on it. And the third one is that this is the purpose that I talked about, that your work should have a purpose and impact. You should be passionate about your work, understand the purpose of anything you do, and be persisting in achieving that purpose. Make sure your work has a positive impact on society. And many of you will go out and go into the field, and then you join companies. But you have to also look and say that, am I making an impact on the society?
Right.
Okay. And then it's important to have good mentors in your life. As you can see, here are some of the mentors in my life: Raj Reddy, Koshla Reddy, Steve Fenves, and then Vint Cerf. And this is very important to have these people in your life.
You're saying a lot and you're going too fast. Just go a little slower. Yeah. So the mentors are critical. Yes.
Yeah, I thought we are
recognize each of these people.
Amazing people. It's important to have good mentors in your life. Whenever you go outside into the real world, and make sure you get out of a good mentor in any company you work or wherever you go. Okay, and then these mentors are very important for you. Right. And then you always have to maintain the bonds with your friends, students, and colleagues. Why do I say that? Because let's say you're undergraduate students and you are on the online and you develop certain links with other students around there, and make sure that whatever links you make are permanent links, And these links in your journey are very useful. And here are some of my colleagues from Carnegie Mellon days whom I'm still in touch with. And then my MIT students I'm still in touch with, and the professors whom I worked with. And it's extremely important to keep in touch with all those people. And these are my NIST people who are there. And these slides, anyway, I'm just showing you for so that they're very important. And again, another thing that happens is that as in your life journey, you'll meet some very, very important people. Like as you can see here, you can see some of the Nobel Prize winners, Turing Award winners, and so on, whom I'm still in touch with. And again, it's very important to keep in touch with all these people. And then, extremely important of all these things is family. Your family, especially when you go out, go into the real world, marry, and then wife, children. Very, very important to manage between the lifestyles of your work and family. Number 7, never ever burn bridges if you can avoid doing so. Okay? Because you never know when that person will be useful in the life. So don't suppose you are in a group and you get angry with someone else, think twice, go back home, sleep, come back the next time, because burning bridges will only hurt you. But on the other hand, you have to solve these conflicts in a collaborative manner. And one of the major things is that as you go up, and some of you may become very famous, and then when you become famous, you get this ego. In the Indian thing, they call it the hamkara. And that ego is a formidable enemy. And try your best to suppress this, no matter how great you become. And then, I've been in many leadership positions. And one of the things that I particularly feel, which is very important, is working with your peers, your technical staff, administrative staff, upper management, and gaining their trust are very important. So, for example, the photograph I show is my administrative assistant, and she's very, very important in my life as my professional career, because without her, I really can't manage what I'm doing right now. So these are the people who will make your life better. These are the people who are very important in your professional world, and make sure that you treat them in an appropriate manner. And then, you'll go out, you have got creative ideas, you make billions of dollars, but important thing is that give back to your alma mater. Okay. In other words, maybe this is a pitch for WGU. I give back to my alma mater, IIT Madras, Carnegie Mellon, and a number of other charities, because you make money. Even with little money I still donate to all these places. Similarly, so when you make money, make sure you give it back to all this your alma mater and charities and things like that. That's extremely important. And finally, you should never stop learning. Learning should be a lifelong experience. You learn at WGU, that's not enough. As when we go from here into the real world, you keep learning.
Wow.
So,
that's
10 pieces of advice I always give people who are graduating.
Yeah, that's a fantastic set of guidelines for how you should live your life. I really like it, and I hope all of y'all have a chance to take a look at that in detail. I know Ram for a long time, and he really lives by every one of these things.
Sesh, there's some great questions in the Q&A, so if you're ready to pivot to that, we can go for it. So
go for it. Mike.
Yes, Dr. Sriram, the first question is, what are some other computational books that you recommend software engineers read?
That's an interesting question, because there are lots and lots of books on software engineering, and I actually recommend a couple of books which I feel are very good. One is by Mary. I'm just trying to see. Shesh, do you remember Mary from CMU? Mary.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We can answer that. We can put that in the follow-up.
What I do is that there are two books. One is Fred Brooks has written this book.
The Mythical Man Month, right?
Mary Shah at Carnegie Mellon University, if you Google.
Mary Shah, yes.
Yeah, Mary Shah. She has written an extremely good book on software architecting. That's very, very useful.
Okay.
That's one of the things I advise people to read. And Fred Brooks, I think he wrote a book on the IBM 370 or something like
The
that.
Mythical Man Month, right? That whole, yeah.
Mythical Man Month, and that's also a very good book. Then there is a guy named Don Norman who talks about design. Okay, and then there's another book on failures, which is again important because life is full of failures.
Right.
Petrosky's book on design of Henry Petrosky. I can get a list of those things, but then this can be. But these are the general books which are extremely useful for anyone in either software engineering or engineering design.
Yeah, we're engineers, and so understanding failure is a critical piece. I love that recommendation around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Failures are important, but people always think about successes. But in fact, one of the things that I wanted to do is to develop a failure database of all the failures that ever occurred.
That's it's super helpful. A lot of data too.
It's
next question. This is a question from Philip. He asks about quantum computing. Since we're kind of far away from making major progress in quantum computing, how do you recommend someone prepare ahead of time for working in the field of quantum computing?
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in the field, but there are well, first of all, you have to understand there are several things in the quantum world. First thing is to understand the basics of quantum mechanics and things like that, and those you can get on the web, videos and so on. You can watch that. And then there is the great courses, and they have some really nice courses on quantum mechanics and so on. So if you go to the great courses, there's about 24 30-minute courses they have. You should watch them first. And the second thing is that in terms of quantum computation, NIST plays a major role in this area. And we actually work with University of Maryland, and we are developing some. It's not very easy in quantum computation because they're talking about all these qubits and so on and so forth. And there's also the fundamental problem of not only the algorithms, but also you want to know how do you capture the output? Because one of the things that happens in quantum is that when you try to measure something, it collapses. The wave collapses to something. Okay, so how are you going to take these fuzzy things of quantum bits and things like that? So there's a lot of stuff which going to go on, and there's a lot of articles and so on. So as I said, that is a whole different lecture on quantum computing.
For sure.
And I think Shesh, maybe you can get someone to talk about quantum computing.
Yeah, probably get somebody from Google or IBM to do that. But that's a good question. But NIST is, of course, working on ciphers that cannot be broken through quantum computing, right?
There's a whole lot of insecurity using quantum computing. So quantum computing is a huge field. So there's so many dimensions. So you have to see what dimensions you are going to look on. But you can start from this a small part of it, and you can only I can only appreciate it, but I don't know how to do programming.
Yeah, no, you and I both. I mean, it's really interesting because everything, all the algorithms that we use for encryption today can be broken, right?
Exactly, just enough time. Yeah, yep. And I think that's probably the most important kind of perspective to share with folks, especially as we converge with the cybersecurity field, is that all encryption can be broken. So what are we doing as computer scientists to think out of the box in ways that we can develop something much like hashes, that can't be reverse engineered or reverse, decryption approaches. So next question from Amanda. What is the most important piece of advice you would have for someone who's new to the computer science field? And I think you had some of those in your presentation, but what would you pick for the one piece of advice?
As I said, the computational thinking is the most important piece of advice I give people. Okay, try to, and then the interesting part of it is that computers. Once you really understand this notion of abstractions and things like that, you can go in any field. You can apply your computer science field to biology. You can apply your computer science field to engineering design. You can apply to computer science field to a lot of things. So if you understand that. Because it's not writing your code that's the important thing. Okay, you can write thousands of lines of code and things like that, and make sure when you write your code you comment it properly. That's a fundamental mistake people make. And when I taught my course in cooperative software development, people used to ask me, why are you making me write all these specifications? And if the code didn't have comments, even though the code worked perfectly, I would give 0. Because someone else has to read your code later on and they have to make changes. Because as I said, this software is evolving. Someone else has to come and work on your software later on. They have to understand exactly. Just hacks like C equals +++1 or something like that, doesn't matter. Okay, so those are the kinds of things you would explain why you did that.
Right.
Sometimes programming languages like C gives you all these hacks, which are not very, are kind of dangerous in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I think just my own personal recommendation for the students listening here is that the way the computer science field and really all the tech fields are evolving, there's so much convergence that if you start thinking out of the box in ways that you can combine technologies or ideas for technology from other fields in ways that nobody else has, that's where you find your niche. So what I'm always telling new computer scientists, new software engineers is think. What is most important to you? What problems do you want to solve? And that will help you create your path. So,
like for example, on that Apple did this platform, software platform, and you have all these apps and things like that. That's a great. It's a platform where you can just put your apps together, and apps communicate with one another, and they did a great job on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and there was a scenario that I've been talking about, spending some time on recently. I was talking to friends. SoundHound and the other apps that are able to listen to a snippet of a song and run through a database of billions of songs and figure out what song that is. That can be used in so many ways, shapes, or forms. And so what I told my group of students was, I walk my dogs every night and I hear the frogs basically croaking out in the woods. Why can't I create an app to tell myself what kind of frog that is, how far away the frog is, and what direction those frogs are in so I can walk over there? You know, it's those types of thinking, you know, where it's like, hey, we've got this technology or this solution. How can we combine it with other realms? And so that's where you get bioengineering and genomics and a lot of the breakthroughs in those.
And Mike, you have now a project for your students on this.
Frog, yes,
how to detect the frog. Okay, good.
That's my project, but you can borrow it.
And as I said, you have to be passionate with what you do. For example, Mike is passionate about WGU. You can see him wearing the shirt.
Yeah, there you have it. Ram, this next question is, how do we find mentors? How did you find some of your most important mentors? What might students need to learn from those of us that have, you know, paved that path where we've had mentors early on and are successful now? What did you do early on to place yourself at the feet of some great teachers?
Yeah. Okay. Now, a couple of things. One is luck plays a factor in this thing. As you know, that sometimes you come across people. And the key thing of getting a good, of course, someone should be willing to mentor you too. But like, for example, like the stalwarts like Raj Reddy, Steve Fenway, Vint Cerf, I mean, these people are willing to work with you. Those people don't have that much of an ego. The problem is whenever you get to a mentor who has a ego, forget him or her, because they're not going to help you in the future. It's all about themselves. So then there are people who are willing to share their knowledge with you. But the other thing that it's very important is that that particular mentor should also feel that you are dedicated, you are committed. Yeah. And if they don't do that, they're not going to waste their time on you. And the minute they find that you're committed, then they will go out of their way to do things for you.
Yeah, Ram, that is so true, right? The top thing that you need to demonstrate to the mentor is that, and I've had a whole bunch of really strong mentors throughout my career, and you have to be able to demonstrate to your mentor that you're going to act on what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And once they see that, I think they cannot stop giving. That's actually.
And the other thing is that don't be afraid to ask. Like, for example,
don't be afraid to ask. Yes.
Who's the father of internet? Okay, and the way that he is a very kind man. But out of nowhere, I asked him a favor, and he did it because we're not afraid to ask. And especially the idea of the smart network systems and societies about 15 years ago, when we talk about how these devices are all going to interact with one another with all kinds of sensors, and there's symbiotic computing between a human being and the computer. And I put forward this proposal to him, and he immediately caught it and said, fine, this looks like a great one. Let's go ahead with it. So a lot of these people whom you think are really big and not approachable are actually approachable.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's one email, one direct message to a person who inspires you. You'll be surprised at how often they write back. You know, a lot of folks spend time writing to musicians or movie stars. You know, the nerds in the computer science and software engineering field, they're not as busy. Well, they could be busy, but they're available. So yeah, reach out.
I love
Hey,
what
I'm
you're saying,
interested in
Mike.
the work
It's
you're
true.
doing, and yeah, and you only need one mentor. That's the other thing as well. So you reach out to 10 people and you get one response. That's all you need. So again, don't make it a failure on your part to reach out.
And the other useful thing that also happens is that suppose you have a mentor who's the father of internet, but then that mentor knows someone, and you know that particular someone, that also helps. So that networking is very important in life. I would say that one of the things that you guys create here as undergraduates is networking. And I showed you like how I network across my IIT days, CMU days, MIT days, NIST days. All these networks you have to create, and these networks are very, very useful.
Exactly. Great example. And so to that point, Sesh and I are available, for emails, questions, guidance, and there's some questions in the chat about how do we connect with other students and faculty as well. WGU campus groups, I put the link in the chat, so so check that out. And here's kind of a follow-up question from James. Any advice for someone switching careers with a family in wanting to get into software engineering? Internships are great, but a difficult proposition for someone who is a primary provider for a family with little savings. Any innovative ideas on how to get involved with software engineering when maybe time and ability?
I think where there is a will, there's a way. So let me give you an example. My sister-in-law, she did a PhD in biochemistry, I guess. Okay, but at the time there are not many jobs available in the field, and she was married, okay, as a family and things like that. But what did she do? And that she looked at the opportunities that which are available around, and there was an opportunity in terms of getting herself trained as a software database person. Not exactly software engineering, but a database person. And they took that course, trained herself as a database person, and joined a government agency based on that background on that. She never used anything she did at a PhD. She was doing fundamental work in genetics, but that was not what it is. She shifted into the software world because that's where at that time the money was for her. And then she, of course, once she got into it, she became passionate and things like that. But the question is that one can move. That's why I said there's a will, there's a way, and there are opportunities. Now, one of the great things about the United States is that this is a place where opportunities are there for everyone. You just have to find out where they are.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. And James, you'll see up in the chat, I put in, look for local opportunities. A lot of nonprofits need support, whether it's just IT support or some minimal coding support. And that's stuff a lot of times that you can do from home. So reach out to them, send them an email, and maybe you can do that work at home, and that will allow you to be available for your family and still working on something. And a lot of us, to Dr. Sriram's point, a lot of us that have gotten to where we're at have raised families. I've got 3 daughters that are all in their 20s. I got my PhD late in life. I did a lot of my work between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So like he said, where there's a will, there's a way. So you put the time in, make the connections, ask the questions, and you'll get there. This was Paul Bruno says, what are your thoughts on Max Tegmark's paper calling for a 6-month halt for all AI progress for realignment? Are you familiar with that paper?
Yeah. I'm familiar with it, but it's a political question, so I have to be careful what I answer. Of course. But in terms of, I know the thing about AI is that it's good that people are kind of looking at it and saying that, how can we mitigate the bad effects of AI? It's good to look into that. But I think that, if you do proper risk management, you don't need to worry about it. You actually not worry about it, but proper risk management is the way to go on that. And also, like, for example, from a risk perspective, we look at developing techniques where you can develop trust in AI. Like, for example, one of the sessions that we had at AAAS along with Windsurf a long time ago is, can you trust Dr. AI? There is the system called Dr. AI, which is giving you medical advice. Can you trust? How can you trust it as such? Now, this moratorium of not working 6 months and all those things, I'm not so sure that's the right way to go.
Yeah. And I think even if, a group of folks decide that, they'll be overruled by a renegade group that doesn't want to wait. So we know how that goes. And just like what happened in the 90s with file sharing. Where there's
So
a will, there's a way. What was that?
No, but any piece of software
Yes.
can go haywire, can do damage.
Yes.
No, you brought up the point earlier that you need to take a look at AI risk management and make it trustworthy and make it responsible. How to do that is the question, and I'm hoping that you are working on that along with others. I think that we're coming to the
10 to 15 year slide I showed you. It's there. You're talking about.
I agree with you. We're coming to the top of the hour. Ram, thank you so much. We covered an incredible amount of space in this 1 hour. Thank you for taking us through all of this. And hopefully you'll be back in a year or so, and we will pick on some of the issues that our students want to go on and continue with you. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you for giving the opportunity. And I said again, all this I've done is because of the people I work with.
That's great. There's a few questions in the chat. I will answer them personally. So Ashley, Zamir, Logan, I'll get back to you. So thanks.
Sorry guys, we're at 9 o'clock, so I just want to make sure that we don't run over. Thank you.
No problem whatsoever.
Again, I thank the audience for their patience.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sriram. Appreciate your time. Everybody have a great night. We'll close out here.
As students, I hope you found this useful. And if you have any comments, please add them on if you want to see something in our future seminars. Thanks. Dean Sets.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.